Hi, I'm Tyson.
I'm Colin.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Adam. And we're the Gamesmiths, and we just got done playing our last playthrough of Trade Worlds. We played with the Planetary expansion, and we played the Trade Wars scenario. As usual, we're going to go through your list of questions and answer those as pertaining to this specific expansion. So first, accessibility. Was the game too simple or overly complex?
No change for me.
No, I think this added actually a little complexity that I enjoyed. So, but yeah,
I would concur. I think it helped for sure.
Yeah, but it
still
wasn't
not
too
overly
complex.
complex.
I would agree with that.
Yes.
Still in the Goldilocks zone.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I thought it was better. It was more interesting, but I think it was the wrong scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we'll get into that in a question or two, but does understanding of card drafting give a player an edge? Again, I think it's the same as
answer.
before.
Yeah,
no
nothing
comment.
different. Nothing changed for this one.
Do you feel that during the game you were on an even playing field with your opponents?
I still feel same
No.
as I did as last time.
There's
which
an
is
imbalance with the asymmetrical player
which I don't think
styles,
any of
but-
those were needed ever. I think you can eliminate everyone's ability and the game gets better.
Right. I think actually Colin and Adam forgot theirs most of the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Every time a ship blew up, did you take your weapon back to your hand?
This time I
I
did.
was down
Yeah.
to less
before you
than
had it.
5
Before I
life
didn't.
before I ever deployed ships in any game I've ever played.
Yeah, like Tyson's ability to ramp
Deploy
up
quicker.
and deploy a ship immediately was way
Was
too big of an
overpowered.
advantage. Whereas Adam and I, if we got a ship out, being able to use our advantage is very late game, and at that point, it's a losing battle.
It
So-
did seem like
And
the
it's not
5
even
credits.
hugely helpful in the
Oh,
game. It's
absolutely
just
not.
Yeah.
With my
mediocre.
player power, though, it did seem like the 5 credits was not that much, but especially with that first ship when, in this specific scenario where
Yeah.
it's 10, Ryan was mentioning before, off camera, that I could potentially get that ship out on my first
Right.
turn, and if not my first, it's guaranteed on my second turn.
Right.
And that gives me the lead, especially in a scenario where it's about killing. If you know how to make sure to kill, that's a
Right.
great advantage.
Yeah.
So with the balance, do all the players have access to the right information to make informed decisions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can a player mitigate the effects of a few bad turns during the game?
I think this.
Still not a few.
Yeah, and I think this speaks to something else that you can see. You know, clearly Colin got frustrated with his bad dice rolls at the end, and there is a
And I had good ships.
Yeah.
too,
Yeah,
so
he
it's
did.
and
like
just in general, and where I think that I think there's a lot of randomness in this game.
Mhm.
I think there's probably too much randomness in this game, and there's a metric for figuring out how frustrated players will get with the randomness in your game, and that is how often does a random dice roll cost them a game or cost them their strategy, and how much time did they invest getting up to the point where that dice roll cost them their strategy.
good
And in
point.
this game, I think
And the
you
previous
have
game, with the
huge. Well,
Doomsday
I just mean in this game. I mean your game
Oh,
as
yeah,
a whole, not in a particular play session, but your game as a whole has huge potential for sending people home very frustrated, leaving a lot of building their plans. You get this, you're sitting here building your own solitaire thing, and you're essentially spending 3, 4, 5 turns getting ready to attack, getting ready to do your thing, and then have all of that just blown out by RNG. If that happens enough, and when you're, I'm not sure what the exact role is, but I don't know what the probability is,
Right.
just head-to-head D6 versus D6, but you're in the neighborhood of a coin flip who wins each time. And if you're getting down to your best laid plans can only get you to a coin flip, if you take 5 minutes to set them up,
Yeah.
or if you take an hour to set them up, is going to lead to player frustration, which you saw in the game.
Well, and my victories felt that way, that it was just biding my time. Eventually, well, you were able to get me down to one last ship, but then I had a
Right.
doomsday device and it threw off.
Right.
So it was
But if I had
all-
been able to kill one of your
Exactly.
ships while Colin was still alive, he would
You
have
would-
cracked back at you and crushed
and
you.
destroyed me,
But
and you
like,
would've
just the
jumped up.
dice rolls just didn't
Yeah.
happen. But I had the ships that lined up properly against your ships that my power was greater than your defense, and your defense was greater than less than my
Right.
attack. So it lined up perfectly for me.
Luck
But
was in my favor.
right, and it
both
just
games.
it gets really frustrating to
Yeah.
people. So I would sit down and try and figure that out, what the frustration factor for RNG is, and you can look this stuff up. There are equations that you can find for it, but it essentially that is how long did the player take to get to the point where they lost their game because of the roll, and how often are they going to lose because of
Right.
the roll? And if the answer is 50% of the time and the whole game, you're going to get people frustrated.
Oh, absolutely.
Too much with the amount of randomness in the game.
The next section is about the rules, and again, I think we've covered the general body of rules pretty well. As far as the rules go for the planetary expansion, how is the clarity? Was it easy to understand? Were
Yeah.
there anything that
Clear.
didn't really jive? There was
Yeah,
one thing.
the
we
one thing
mentioned.
was when you kind of tick over the die,
Right.
because
That did have we had a little bit of
because that matters as to, well,
But
can
thought
I
like
get
the rules,
advantage
when
of the
we
trade?
consulted the rules, it was pretty clear.
Yes, but it didn't say exactly when. So the other question is on that last turn before you tick it down the last time, do you have an opportunity to trade before, bank in and get the planetary bonus before that last die ticks down or not?
Especially
wasn't
on a
clear.
one-turner,
Yeah,
Like-
especially on one turn, yeah.
because you're spending 5 money or 5 resource to get this thing, and then you want to be able to use the planetary. So I didn't end up using the planet trade ability at all when I would have had I been able to switch out. So instead I just got 10 for the one turn. I guess that's good, but it
Yeah.
would have been nice to know if I could have traded in the bank to get triple or two or three times on the resources.
Yeah,
Right.
that and the email that we sent you about how colonies resolve was just a little unclear in the rules. It
Yeah.
made sense once we started playing it,
Yeah.
but there could be some clarity resolved.
Yeah,
in
when you-
that.
And you included that in the email. Just make sure you include that in the rule
Right.
book as well.
As for the design, does the game elements match the theme? So specifically with the planetary expansion, did you feel the theme matching well with the
I thought
gameplay?
it finally felt the strongest with having planets, because I thought, well,
Right.
you have a home world, and now you actually get to see a world where you actually can be. So I thought that made the most sense, and I felt like it almost should be there the entire time. Like I think that's one of your strongest pieces that you could have is the colonies, and showing. I don't know. That just seems like, what is this game? You're setting up this society and trying to build this up, and then but you never see anything in the other scenarios we played. So this felt
Yeah.
very much like a space mission where you're trying to accomplish things. You're trying to build up your resources to buy your ships. It felt more like a game I would want to play.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And the colony portion of the expansion didn't feel so much of an expansion experience to me. It just felt like a little bit more of similar to the reinforcement ships or things like that, that it could have been a part of the base game. And even like Colin's saying, if you have a home world, maybe you do that. You had how many different colonies? There were
Right.
a number of colonies, and I think I flipped one colony out
Right.
of the
True.
I
out of the
would
maybe
do-
16 or whatever they were.
I would do a central deck of colonies.
Yeah.
Because then that way you're going like, oh, you're looking at that and you want that colony in the middle, so you're more
Yeah.
incentivized to go on a mission sooner because somebody else is going to take that colony, as opposed to just looking at your colony, either being excited about it or not, but not really having a choice
Right.
in the matter. That's just the colony you're going to next, so deal with it.
And that
we
makes
could all
sense
have,
towards colonization.
thematically, we could all have the same colony up at the same time, which wouldn't make as much sense as each of us
Yes. Right.
fighting over
Right.
the trade routes and the trade worlds.
Yeah,
So,
and there's a lot of things that could be a little fixed thematically there. But like Colin was saying, I did think that going on missions felt a little bit more thematic, and
Yeah.
it felt more of the
Definitely.
experience that you were looking for,
Way
I
more
think.
thematic.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So I think that covers kind of the design. The other question, so discuss if gameplay met or did not meet or exceeded expectations. I kind of want to take this to discuss like a big picture feeling. I think ultimately I'm a little disappointed that I don't think we're going to play like the most interesting version of this game, which I think would be like if I just saw all these scenarios and I got to pick what I wanted to play, I would want to do a trade world scenario, a trade war scenario where trade getting 100 is the victory, and then I would want the planetary missions on those. So now I'm sending
Without
my
the
ships
ability
on
to attack
missions.
home bases. Or with-
Yeah, that's a change to the core rules, but and, yeah, that is something that I would do. Honestly, if I were going to come in and make the tweaks to this game that I think would get me the most fun out of it without really tweaking too much, would be exactly what Adam was saying there. I would remove the ability to attack homeworlds and only have the ability to attack and defend your trade ships, and then you are. Then it becomes kind of a trade wars, trade worlds kind of thing to us, where these 4 big mega factions that are competing over these like independent worlds and resources and routes. And what we're doing, no one's actually trying to go blow up the home world of the mega corporation that is, or the mega faction that's undefended for some reason. It doesn't make sense that my home world has no natural defenses. But it does make sense, and it also seems like just this all-out act of war to attack another person's home planet. It does make sense to send out these things on trade routes, have to build warships to protect your trade ships. Trade ships are running missions to get you an economic victory, and then your decision is focus on running missions or disrupting other people's missions, and you're not just blowing up people's homeworlds. Blowing someone up no longer becomes an option. Player elimination is no longer an option. It's always just a race to the end, and you can choose to cripple or build up enough ships that one can attack and one to defend and kind of thing like that. But I think you have a bunch of very interesting mechanics here, but ultimately I don't think they're arranged in kind of an optimal way to optimize the amount of fun you can have out of the mechanics you already have.
Well, and to go to like adding reinforcements to this too would be a little more viable, since some of the missions you go on will give you 30 credits.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it doesn't feel as bad to spend 10 credits if you're getting 30 from a mission.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then do we want to, let me see, rules cover necessary details. That's fine. We've already explained where they lack clarity.
Thinking in downtime, this one was a little different. I think that Adam and I initially
Right.
had the experience of how fast do we get our turns off. And it's pretty easy, I think, to be able
Yeah.
to see that we can figure out our turn really quickly. You saw us counting 1 to 5 seconds, and we were getting our turns done, and then it would come back. There was a little bit of downtime for us in between because we were like, okay, we know what we're doing, we know which track we're going down, and so there can be a little bit of that downtime, like any other thing, but that disparity is going to increase when you put this game in front of an experienced player and a non-experienced player, and that's the same
and that's
thing
fine.
with anything, but just I'm not sure exactly what you're looking for in this question with thinking and downtime.
I would,
know that you can play this game really fast, or
Yeah.
you can be very, very, very deliberate about what you're thinking through everything.
yeah, I think ultimately once everybody knows how to play the game, it moves fast
Right.
enough. I think if that's what you're asking, I think it does
Right.
ultimately move fast enough.
So I think that covers all the questions for specific to this planetary expansion, other than the rating. So we'll go ahead and do our ratings of this experience. Please rate the game from 1 to 10, 1 being terrible, 10 being good.
Great.
Same as usual. So anybody want to kick us off on that one?
Mine actually goes up to maybe a 5 or 6 with the trade routes, the different worlds. This felt like it should have been the core game with the
Right.
mods. So I think this expansion with the support ships and maybe some modifications like Ryan was talking about, that actually puts the design and theme up to a I'd say actually a little above average. I'd give this a 6. So this much better for me.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
But as the base game, if I had to buy the
right.
base game as is and then buy this, well, I wouldn't
No,
buy this
I
because
don't
the
think
base game wouldn't
yeah,
deliver for me.
I don't think you have a base game and an expansion here. You have one game here. You need the planets. They are a core part of your game, and they add a lot. The planets and the missions add a depth to your game that tie it into the theme and really bring everything together.
Yeah.
And
Let me finish.
yeah.
I'd say
Oh,
this
I'm
is a 6 as is. I think with some development, it could get up into that.
The 6 as is
up
with the
in-
planetary expansion
Yes,
specific.
if
Yeah.
this was the
Yes.
core game. And I think with some development on this and some tweaks and some changes, could even get up into the 7s and 8s for me. So,
Yeah,
great job.
I would agree.
I've been
with
hard
that.
on the other ones, but I'll give credit where credit's due. I think this is good.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think your other ones were unfinished. They felt a little directionless. They felt like I didn't really have a whole lot to do. This definitely tied it a lot together. I agree with Adam. It's a 6 now. It could be a 7 or 8. With the changes. And I guess I don't want to be so arrogant to say make the changes I just suggested and your game will be better.
You got
but
close to saying
I
that.
did, and I am that arrogant. But I don't want to.
But he won't be it right.
But no, that's just where I'd try. I would start there. I would say remove that piece. And if that works for you, or there's parts of that doesn't work for you, make some tweaks, of course. But like that's where I'd start, or and focusing more on the aspect of there's a lot to do with all the credits and everything and all the different things you can do, but if it boils down to ship combat being the best thing to do, then all of those other choices become a lot less interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So remove just the ability to just blow someone out of the game, keep everybody in the game for the whole time, and make the win condition economic, but then revolve the combat around messing with people's economy and not just trying to kill them.
And I'm going to echo the same thing. I was thinking along the same lines that for me, this experience with the planetary expansion, I've been ranging from 4, 5 with my averages for the previous 3 to 5 from the previous mods and the different experiences we've had with the game. But this expansion makes it more of a 6, a little bit above average, just like they're saying. I think that what you were trying to do here, and I may be completely off base, but it seems to me what you're trying to do here is create a lot of replayability in the game. You're trying to make it so that somebody can come to this game and play it one scenario or one experience after the other. And in this market of board games and card games, it is highly sought after to have that replayability. And I completely understand the need and the desire to want to do that, but it can't feel superficial. And unfortunately, every other module, every other thing that went before this felt superficially replayable. I'm not going to ever play those games again. I would, more likely than any of the others, replay the planetary expansion, and also echoing what Ryan says, given some tweaks, and Adam giving some of that development help, you could have the planetary expansion as a base game being more replayable than all of it together, in my opinion. And that, I think, is the failing of the game in some ways, is that there's so much that the average player is not going to want to dive in, especially if they start on those introductory scenarios that you have.
Yeah.
Because those, if we had played this game, if you had sent it to us and we had played it one time, and we had played it based off of that first experience, at least from my perspective, I would have said that this was a bad game and it was not a game I would ever want to play or even support. Fortunately, we were able to play all of the expansions, and each time it did get a little bit better. But when you put it all together in that last planetary expansion experience, that to me was the best part. That's the best way your game shines. And I would stop worrying about replayability if that's what you're worrying about, and start focusing on what is the best game that you can offer. And I think it starts with this planetary expansion.
Yep.
Well, and to add a point onto yours, people won't ever buy an expansion to a good game. You don't play a game and say, oh, that's good, and then go buy the expansion. People buy expansions to great games. So even if you want to build lots of expansions, which I encourage, you have to first build a solid, great core game to make someone go, man, that was amazing. I want more. I bought few expansions in my life, and every game I bought an expansion for, I was amazed by. So
And every
you
game
really
that I
have
bought-
to. You can't hold back that great stuff for an expansion. You have to wow them with the first one, then you got to do it again with an expansion.
And I've bought expansions for games that I thought were good, and there's never been an expansion for one of those games that I thought, I'm glad I bought that. Almost every good game expansion I've ever purchased, I play it maybe once and then never play it again, and then that affects the way of the base game, and I usually don't play that game as well.
Okay. Well, I will say a 6 as well for this. I do have some concerns about it. Just noticing who was playing missions and who wasn't. Based on the scenario that we played, I didn't feel incentivized to put missions onto my ships. The payoff didn't seem worth it. I couldn't defend my home world, especially when Tyson had 3 ships out. I think he only played 1 mission the entire game. I played 1 mission the whole game, and
Played
it was a
2.
1 turn.
And Adam did too.
So I loved the colonies. I loved the fact that you could get missions, but again, saying that you can't defend your home world. So in a scenario where you're trying to kill your other players, it doesn't make sense for me when I only can have 1, 2, 3, or maybe 4. If you can get up to 100, that's crazy. And be able to have the cards in your deck to be able to get that 4th, so you can put together a 4th ship.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. So I'm not going to want to put one of my, especially if you have, some of the missions were 5 turns? 4 or 5 turns?
5 was the max
So
one I did.
5 turns, when you can't get rid of that mission and abort, there should be an abort option where you
Right.
can say, like, I'm being attacked. I'm at 3 health right now, and
Call
I
it
need
back,
this guy.
yeah.
I need this guy to come and defend my home world. That option wasn't available, so that concerns me. Also, part of the design on the cards was a little confusing to me. You have like a 1, 2, 3, and it confused me as to how many turns it would take. At first, I thought this was 3 turns.
Yeah.
But it
The
said
numbered bullet points on the
bullet
cards.
points
Yeah,
was very
get rid of
confusing.
those.
Get rid of
It's
those
so
because
confusing.
I was thinking originally it was 1 turn, or it was 3 turns, but it turned
Right.
out as I read further in the card, it was actually only 1 turn.
Yeah.
And then
It looks like turn 1, fight pirates. Turn 2, get
Yes,
28
yes,
rewards.
that's-
Turn 3, turns 3. And you're just like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah, that-
you're reading it down like, it's almost like a checklist, and then it's,
as far as the colonies go, I thought all those made sense, but the thing that I didn't like about it was that you actually had to turn your card over to see what kind of resource it was. So you're having to look at both of your sides of your cards to cash out your bank.
Yeah.
When you're supposed to be hiding information, but then it's all available. So as we said in the past, just put all the information on one side of the card, get rid of that flavor text, that bullet point that
Yeah.
says 1, that's confusing. Just put those mineral resources. That's all you need on the middle of that card, because that's
Yep.
going to be
That's
the
gonna solve so
core
many
of
issues.
this. That if you put all this together into one good game, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get your minerals that you're going to need for your colonies. You're going to have your missions that you get to go on, or you can abort. And you can use all of the pieces that you gave us in one game, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And we just didn't get a chance to play that scenario that would have optimized everything, as these guys said.
Right.
But yeah, with a couple tweaks, like the biggest thing that I would say out of this whole experience is you need a card back. You need a card back.
Right.
You need hidden information. It will increase the playability of this.
Right.
You won't be able to see your opponent's hands. They won't be able
It'll
to see
make it
yours.
easier. The game will move faster because you won't
Less
be flipping your
confusing.
cards back and over again. Yeah, if I were to play this again, the only reason we didn't do it is because we were doing it on camera. I would right away sleeve up all of these cards so they had regular backs and just write on the front what type of resource, mineral, tech, or whatever. I'd write it on the front of the card with a pen. I'd sleeve it up, and I would be 10 times happier with it. So yeah,
Yeah, I think you can have a great game out of this, as these guys said. I think you can make it up to an 8 possibly, but you just have to have all these little pieces together. You kind of compartmentalized the way we played throughout this experience, and I think maybe that's what you were looking for, in building us up to this grand finale
Right.
of, or I don't know.
But if you expect your average players to do that, it's not going to happen.
Right.
They're not going to play, okay, here's your super core, most basic version of the game. Here's slightly more complicated. Here's slightly more complicated. Okay, let's bring everything together. Like, nobody's going to do that. You have to have all of the factors in your game if you want to take out some of the most confusing bits, like, hey, these 4 and 5 cards are really confusing how they interact. Pull them out for the first play session. That's fine, but don't expect people to play entire play sessions with like 50% of the rules missing. Like they're just not going to do that. They're not going to, unless it's a legacy board game, they're not going to play a different version of the game every time until they feel they're comfortable enough to play the whole game. There are games that are way more complicated than this, that, you know, the Arkham Horrors of the world that are selling like gangbusters are way more complicated from this and don't give you this watered down version to start with, because it's just like, hey, here's the game, take the time to figure it out, take 3 hours the first time you play it, and then you'll get faster the next time. So
Last one, fun factor rating.
So
I'd echo it again. I'd say 6.
I'm
That,
still at a 6.
with
for
this
same
this
reasons.
one, bring it around. It reflects the game rating for me overall. 6.
Yeah, Colin.
I mean, I had a rough time on this one. I had some bad
Yeah.
rolls, so I did not have as much fun on this.
Fair
That's just this one playthrough. So
Yep.
I had about a 3 or 2, but because I had some great cards out, I had some powerful ships, and things were just getting around it.
I just
would've-
cracked back on.
I almost
Yeah.
would have
Yeah.
liked the choice to, as a defender, kind of like Magic, you get to choose who you block.
Well,
That would have been nice.
The problem is so much favors the defender, because the defender winning means the defender wins.
Right.
A tie means the defender wins. So the attacker only wins when the attacker clearly wins, and their attack is higher than the defense, and the person doesn't have enough defense cards. So attacking is just, it's so feel bad. So yeah,
Yeah,
ultimately.
I lost 2 ships attacking, like big, good ships. That,
Yeah.
Like, so-
And so yeah, like I would ultimately put my experience down to like a 4 or a 5. I feel like I'm having less fun than the the potential for the game, because of the amount of randomness in it. So I think overall we enjoyed playing your game. This was fun. It was cool to see it all come together at the end. We think that you need to just include all of these elements in your game, expect more of your players, and people can figure out how to play this type of a game. Just write a nice, clear rule book. People will figure it out. People will play it the way that you want to play, with all the components from the get-go, and they'll have a lot more fun with it. And then take a look at how much randomness you're including in the game, because there is a point of frustration there where you should be able to mitigate enough randomness, or feel at least the next time you come back, you can mitigate enough randomness to get rid of that frustration. But overall, you've got a lot of potential for a really fun game here. Thank you very much, and keep up the good work.